So welcome to the latest edition of the Albert's List webinar, where we are talking about the evolution of careers and all the things related to jobs. And today we have Gabriel Moncayo here with us of AlwaysHired. And so when we look at sales, we realize that sales has always had an awkward reputation with an image of a crooked salesperson with a slick black hair carrying an attache briefcase. With a lot of this people in mind, a lot of these images, people get scared away from it. And today, we'd like to spend this webinar debunking the myths of a sales career. And Gabriel Moncayo is the perfect person. He's the founder of AlwaysHired, an in-person immersive sales training program for people who want to get their foot in the door at the best technology companies in San Francisco. They only accept students who are highly motivated, self-starters, who will let nothing stop them from achieving this next step in their lives. And we have Gabriel, who's the founder of AlwaysHired, who has 10 years of experience delivering technology solutions in a sales cycle, as well as building sales teams from coast to coast in the United States. I'm Albert Chen. I am the founder of Albert's List. We are a job seeker marketplace connecting recruiters, job seekers, career service providers, hiring managers, and people with the power of referral all throughout Silicon Valley and beyond. And so, yeah, we're here today to help people understand why sales is a career that they ought to consider. And so for those of you who are just joining us here on this webinar, the way that this works is we're going to spend the next little bit talking about what exactly sales is. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the live chat here to the right. And at the very end, we're going to hear a little bit more about AlwaysHired, and we're going to learn about it throughout the course of this webinar as well, and why, if you're thinking about making lots and lots of money in your life, you should think about joining this program and just taking your career to the next level. Welcome to the show, Gabe.
Thanks for having me, Albert. I'm really excited to be here.
Did I miss anything on that introduction?
No, not at all. So hopefully my semi-slick black hair doesn't set the wrong tone here.
It looks like you've got it gelled a little bit, but I can see a little bit of it poking out. So I don't think you're that bad of a sales guy, huh?
Yeah, half normal, right?
So just before we start, I know a lot of people have ideas about what sales exactly is. Can you tell us Can you tell us your definition of sales and what exactly is composed of it nowadays? Because I did sales back in the day. I went not door to door, but I called people up and I sold Cutco cutlery between senior year of college and senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, and that involved a lot of phone calls and walking up to people and demoing knives in their kitchens. Is that what sales is these days?
I'd say sales has probably evolved a little bit beyond selling knives door to door, although it seems like you had a lot of fun back in the day. If I were to answer, if I were to answer what is sales, sales is understanding human psyche and understanding that what people say and what people feel might not always be the same thing. So, for example, if you've ever asked someone, hey, how's your day going? And then 5 minutes later, they actually end up crying because their boss yelled at them, but really they told you they were having a great day, you'll very quickly realize that human beings interact in a very strange way, where just because I told you something doesn't mean it's really what I believe in my heart and in my mind. It was just the easy and convenient thing for me to say. So sales is speaking to the subconscious of the human being race.
Wow. So explain what you mean by speaking to the subconscious. That's actually a pretty deep statement, and that can mean a lot of different things. We've talked about being mindful in your career on these webinars before, but what about I guess the subconscious experience would compel me to, I guess, go into sales as somebody who's selling something and possibly as an end customer who might be buying something?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd all like to believe that we are controlling our actions, but in reality, it is our subconscious that is controlling the actions of the human body. And it's the actions and the path that we've taken in life that shapes our subconscious. So if you've ever yelled at a loved one and then apologized later and told them you didn't mean it, that's an example of your brain and your body doing two different things. So understanding that human beings have triggers in their mind based on fears that they've been either learned through their upbringing or they've been taught by a mentor or a trainer, and then speaking to that secondary layer of their brain directly is what communicating with the subconscious means.
Interesting. Okay. And so if I'm somebody who's like a new graduate and that's something that I don't quite understand, like who's qualified to do sales if, I guess they're thinking about the subconscious and things of that sort. I guess now that I'm thinking, how does one qualify for a sales career and how does one excel in that?
Yeah, I'd say if you really enjoy understanding how people work, if you ever find yourself being a people watcher. I remember when I was younger, I was 7 years old, I would just sit on my mother's couch, which faced the street, and I would just watch people walk back and forth for hours at a time. And I was just so intrigued by social interactions. So if you're intrigued by social interactions, if that's something that you genuinely find interesting, then sales can be a great opportunity for you. I'd also say if you're competitive, if you've ever played sports, if you've ever had a ton of fun being in a team environment, sales is a great opportunity to own your own number and make a lot of money, but do it with someone who also has a goal, with a manager that has a team goal, which is the combination of your quota and your teammates' quota. So if you've ever been part of a team environment of any kind and you thrived in that environment and you realized that it made you better as a person, then sales could be a good opportunity to look into.
So do you feel like, so Lee Lin here asks, do you feel like that do you feel like that sales is a natural skill or something that we all have to develop?
I don't really believe talent exists to a certain degree. If I really believe talent exists, that means that I would think someone was better than me just because they were born that way. And I don't think that's really healthy in terms of a mentality for anyone to have, regardless of what they're trying to accomplish. We're all human beings. We're more similar than we are different. And what you really have to do is you just have to commit yourself, because sales at this point really has become an equation. It's a series of different data points that, when put together in a specific order, equals a certain output. And that's why I believe in order to get into sales, you just have to be committed to the craft. And that's the way to make sure that you're successful.
So as someone myself who's like a marketer by day during my day job, I feel like the definition is actually very similar, because it sounds like you're telling me that sales is an art as much as it is a science.
Yeah, absolutely. What can be really fun about sales, so the downside about sales is it can be repetitive sometimes, but the fun side about sales is that you have so much creativity within that repetition to fine tune the machine and to really figure out how to increase efficiency. And just like an artist can take two colors and create an entirely new color, a salesperson can take two sentences that were previously not used in the script and generate a completely new outcome. And that's a really empowering opportunity for a human being to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take two colors in a work environment, put them together, and create something new and beautiful for the company.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's perfectly kind of explained in the sense where, salespeople, I feel like, so as somebody who works in marketing, I have people who pitch me platforms all the time for marketing enablement, sales enablement, support type stuff. And I feel like they have to get more and more creative. They have to put two unrelated colors together and then tie that back to their product. Like, I read your blog post, I visited your website, and did you know we were able to do this for our other client, and that kind of thing, right? And so that's kind of what I feel like sales has become, especially with the aspect of building a lot of color. And I feel like, people do that on a regular daily basis. So that, is it true that pretty much you and I, we're all salespeople?
Yeah, if you I think that's a fair assumption. If you've ever asked someone to do anything, you've pretty much sold them on it. I mean, if you've ever asked your friend to go get a beer with you and they say they're tired, and you say, well, Bobby and John are coming, you should come too, that's a sales tactic. If you've ever gone into an interview and you came up with a preset of questions that you thought would impress them, that's a sales tactic. So we use these forms of communication all the time. And essentially, if you're premeditating an outcome and you're using your body language or your voice or something of that nature to achieve that outcome, you are absolutely using sales tactics in your everyday life.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like when you go to an interview, you have to be able to sell yourself really well, and that in itself is a sales pitch to get hired, right? And those who don't get hired don't have good enough sales pitches.
Yeah, they weren't able to clearly articulate the value of their product.
Exactly. So would it be fair to say that at the end of the day, and as a new graduate, I wouldn't have thought of this, but we're all packages of our own products that we have to put out there, and LinkedIn is essentially our very own CRM system now.
Yeah, I think in general, if we as consumers can understand that we are a product, we are our own little business, and we need to consistently be rolling out new features, and we need to consistently be getting feedback from the market, then what happens is your product continues to evolve, and your product gets bigger, and it becomes worth more, and more people want to interact with it. And that really speaks to just accountability, which is something we can get into a little bit later. But I think understanding that we all are products and we're all trying to improve and accomplish things, it's a really healthy mental approach, and it really frees a person up to feel accountable and responsible for their life and their goals.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to how to improve yourself as a person for sales. I just finished How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read the book over again because, like at my new job, I'm going to have to do a lot of that. I read it. I took notes on my phone while I was listening to the audiobook, and I know that it translates very well to sales because your ability to have conversations with other individuals is just so key. Because I feel like after being 5 years in work, it's not so much about the technology that you know how to do or the projects that you're able to do, but your ability to communicate over the phone, over email, over all of these different channels is so key to being able to maintain your job and really sell yourself as somebody that when it comes to the chopping block time, you stay and other people might have to go.
Yeah, you actually allude to something really great there that I learned a few years back in my career, which is one of the major keys to success, not to quote DJ Khaled there. Major key is communication and expectations. And if you're good at communicating expectations, you can really accomplish any goal that you want, because what happens is you start to create a buffer system where you know you can perform at this level, but you always set expectations at this level, which means you're always looking like a rock star. And that's a really great way to position yourself in the market to have a safety net whenever it's necessary.
Totally. So I know at AlwaysHired, you're focused on helping people getting into high-tech sales. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So because, most of our community is in Silicon Valley, I am from Silicon Valley myself, now living in Southern California. What differentiates tech sales from, say, selling, I don't know, a car, or selling a yacht, or selling things that, aren't like the software hardware of the hardware variety that, you and I have both kind of come to know in our times doing marketing and sales in Silicon Valley? What differentiates tech sales, and what makes it really exciting right now?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think number one, the barrier of entry to be an entrepreneur is fairly low, right? I mean, if you knew how to code, Albert, and I knew how to sell, we could start a startup.
Two-person right there.
And that's literally all it takes. And because of that, it creates this unique sense of competition and this unique environment where everyone's always trying to maximize their output. Everyone is so focused on getting better as a person, getting better as a business person, just improving the value that they drive to those around them, that it creates this hyper intense growth opportunity within the community. And I'd say above all, that's what's really special about tech that I've seen compared to anything else, is that the people that are in tech, you see them one day, you see them 4 months later, and they're literally just a different person. You see them a year later, you don't even recognize them. And that's because just like the actual tech industry, just like actual tech products, people that are in tech end up evolving and growing so rapidly because they're part of the ecosystem.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like, even in marketing here. So I've been working in more or less the Silicon Valley ecosystem over the last 6 years. And just in my last trek of interviews, I was interviewing with people that were probably walking by my desk 3 short years ago when I was at Cisco, but this was for another different company. And before we were having these conversations, we were just trading stories on basically, you know, this is what we both did together. I probably didn't see you, but you know, you probably walked by my desk, or you were probably reporting up to my senior managers and consulting them, and you know, things like that. And so, you know, the tech world is really tiny, and I'm betting that this tech sales world is even tinier because you're selling to so many of the same people over and over and over again. When I moved from my job in Silicon Valley to Orange County last year, the same people who were emailing me at my job in Silicon Valley were emailing me again over County, and they're like, "Yeah, I remember when you were at that last company.
Yeah.
Is your new company interested in my product?"
Absolutely, that's fairly common.
Yeah, and so sales then, I guess, as a result, isn't really just sales. It's also talk a little bit about how sales and maybe networking fit into each other too.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's great about sales nowadays is, and the death of a salesman, so to speak, is there are no more snake oil products, right? If I want to sell you something, literally while I'm talking to you on the phone, in 30 seconds, you can Google me as a person. You can Google my company. You can Google reviews on Yelp. You can Google reviews on Glassdoor. There are so many resources out there now to protect and enable the consumer to obtain information at the speed of light, essentially. And because of that, it's really created both products, companies, and people that have to be honest and straightforward. And because of that, it's really becoming more relationship-based. I have to connect with another human being and just have a real conversation because 9 times out of 10, because there's so much information on the internet, companies are now putting everything on their website. So in the past, companies used to not put pricing on their website because they wanted to hide it so that you had to contact them and talk to sales. But then what happened was once someone purchased the product, they would go onto some blog post and they would just write the price so that future people didn't have to go through what they went through. Nowadays, that doesn't happen because companies just put their pricing on their website. So I no longer
product, they say, call us.
yeah, for sure. So, also applicable for really big enterprise. If it's like a really big custom enterprise package, you still need to usually talk to sales. To a certain degree, there's some type of indicator of what the price point is going to be. And the way that relates to networking is that it's about establishing trust and then creating value. And that's really all it is. If I can get you to agree that I'm an honest person, that's the first checkpoint. And then once you believe I'm an honest person, if you believe there's anything I can do to help your life improve, why would we not find a way to work together, right? And that's the same thing that networking is. Networking is creating a relationship with a stranger, saying, hey, we're strangers, but we trust each other enough to try to help each other grow our careers. And now that we trust each other, how can we drive value in the business of ourselves, in the business of I'm a product? And that's why sales and networking have evolved and are very similar.
Yeah, and I see that actually in my everyday experience where I think one of us volume with oops. So anyways, yeah, I mean, I think I see that every day a lot in my marketing career now too, because, you know, it's very driven on content, right? Content is now king, and we have the buyer's journey. And I believe it was Gartner who stated, or one of these folks that stated that 70% of the buyer's journey is complete by the time somebody reaches sales. And a lot of that hand is content, and content in the form of blogs, webinars, free trials, things like that. So compare and contrast a little bit of how sales has kind of changed in the last 20 years. Because I know that if I would have started a sales career in 1996, it definitely doesn't look like what it is now in 2016.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd probably have a lot more gray hair because you'd be stressed out lying to everyone.
Yeah,
That was a little bit of an exaggeration, but still semi-valid. I'd say the big difference is two things. One, the rise of the software stack. So the software stack is a set of tools that a company gives to their team to enable them to operate more efficiently. I'll give you an example. In the 90s, if I sent you an email, I had no idea if you received it. You could tell me you didn't. I could send 1,000 emails and I have no idea who to call. Now, if I send you an email, I know when you open the email. I literally get a notification on the top of my screen that says, Albert is opening your email right now. So what am I going to do? I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to call you. And I'm going to say, hey, Albert, what do you think about that presentation I sent you? I know you're in front of a computer, right? And you're going to be like, what? What's going on here, Dave? Are we in the future?
Right? You're stalking me.
Exactly. So,
I mean, I get emails all the time where after I've read it, Outlook requests to send a read receipt to the other person. I mean,
yeah.
You can say yes or no, and one way or another, whether they opened it or not.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there are a lot of tools out there. There are other tools where I can get anyone's email address. Where this is a common tool. If you're not familiar with this, you're probably like, whoa, that sounds creepy. But it's a very common tool where you can essentially hack anyone's email. So you want to go after a person, you can figure out their email, and then you can see when they open your email. I mean, how much easier does that make your life as a salesperson? So the evolution has created this change where everything is done with precision and everything is done with purpose. In 1996, you'd probably be making 250 cold calls a day, hoping you catch a person that's in front of a computer. In 2016, you make 50 calls a day because you're only calling when you know someone's in front of a computer, for example. So that's how sales has really started or has evolved over the last decade or so.
And so, yeah, talk about, I think, lead generation too. I sat behind the CRM administrator at my last job, and he was talking about things like lead scoring and lead nurturing and things like that. How does that fit into today's sales career as well? What does that all mean?
Yeah, so what it means is just because someone doesn't buy today doesn't mean they're not going to buy at all. And because of the power of all these software tools, I can start to estimate when you're going to buy. So let's say you come to the website, I can use software that will actually capture your information, even if you did not apply to contact me. And then I would put a note in my database saying that Albert visited the website, but he didn't apply. He's probably very early in the buyer stage, but keep an eye on him. If he doesn't come back to the website in 3 months, maybe you give him a call, see what he's up to. Another thing with lead nurturing, it's being able to farm an existing set of leads. So now that I know I can call a lead when they're in front of a computer only, for example, I'm calling less leads than I used to. So what do I do with the other leads that are just sitting in my database? It's a waste of resources if they're just sitting there. So instead, I create all these processes that run in real time in conjunction, but just on the back end. And basically what that means is if I'm making 50 calls in a day, I also have my computer system sending out 10,000 emails so that by the time I get to work again tomorrow, my computer will tell me which of those 10,000 emails I should call. And what I'm doing is I'm nurturing my leads and I'm continuing to work them until the system tells me they're ready for actual human contact. And that's something that we did not have access to in the past. And in terms of just lead generation just means generating a list of leads to call. So if you wanted to sell AlwaysHired something, you would put my name, my email, my company. You'd probably put the size of the company, maybe some demographic information, and you basically just build a list that you can call down and try to make a sale to. And nowadays with LinkedIn and a lot of other tools, you can basically auto-populate Excel documents, which is really crazy. So I could just put Albert at Albert's list, and Excel will just populate with like 15 important pieces of information from you. And it makes it really easy for me to be efficient with my prospecting.
And so does that make that makes just conversations in general way more stimulating. It's like you call me and you know the name of my dog, you know the name of my wife, you know what I had for dinner last week. And, you know, from like the top down, you're just like, yeah, you know, hey, I know the 49ers stunk last season, but, you know, hey, let's do some here together, right? You know, it's kind of, it's a whole new way. And it's like, wow, how do I, you know, handle that? You know, it's crazy. Even as like, I think salespeople have to be very conversationalist these days, as well as being very strategic. And that's not something that even people say 40 years ago in 1976 had to do, because they were going door to door and they kind of had to build a conversation from scratch in order to even know if someone was interested. And if they weren't even interested, that could be 20 minutes out the window, you know, selling encyclopedias door to door.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point about the connection you can make when you have all this extra information. Just in general, you know, for anyone watching this, as a human being, who are you more likely to help, your friend or a stranger? It's a pretty easy answer. In fact, that's what corruption is anyways, right? On a separate political note, or if you look at really high up, it's just friends helping friends, family helps family. It's just the way we work as human beings. So what is a friend? And what's the difference between a friend and a stranger? A friend is just someone that knows a lot of things about you and knows what you like and what you don't like. So if in our first interaction, I already know everything about you, do you feel like I'm a stranger? Or does it feel like we're friends? It just feels like we're friends, which makes you more likely to want to help me and want to create a relationship with me.
And what's more interesting about that is just how much, you know, you realize that it's just business. So if you call me and you know I like the San Francisco Giants and I live in Orange County and I work for a company, as opposed to just saying, hey, we have this product. Do you want to buy this? Yeah. I think there's a night and day difference between how that conversation goes. Because, you know, I remember I was sitting at a table for lunch with a friend on this last Saturday, and these folks from this church come in and they try to sell us on some program. And this guy was like, "Hey, do you mind if we bother you to you know, sell this program?" And my friend was like, "Yeah, don't bother us," right? And so I think it's a very traditional sales way of selling things, because it's like you're asking permission for someone to bother you.
All right.
They're gonna say no every time.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy question.
Yeah, versus you coming in and, you know, breeding some of that like familiarity, where you're able to like say, hey, you know, I read your blog from 2 weeks ago. It talked about these things, and it looks like you want to do these things with whatever your business is. Can we have a conversation, because I think I can help you? Right. And, you know, whether you're building this sale now or you're building it later, you know, it's a long-term relationship thing. Yeah. So I think taking that into mind, maybe we could talk a little bit about like what skills one needs to succeed in the career of sale, in a sales career. Because I know we talked about this a little bit earlier with regards to conversation and things of that sort. Do you have any things in your courses that you teach, and just like top 5, top 10 skills that, you know, makes a successful salesperson? Because there's a lot of really high turnover when it comes to sales, obviously, too. But, you know, obviously, if you're the right type of person, the turnover will be lower. So what's the key to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general, the first thing to understand is the reality of the equation. And the equation with sales is high risk, high reward. That's just the stock that you're playing if you want to play sales. So first understand that, internalize it, ask yourself if you're okay with the pressure to justify the payout, right? Pressure for payout. So that's the first thing. And in terms of character traits and things to look for internally to decide, you know, can I handle the kitchen, so to speak, the heat that comes from it? There's 3 things that I've always looked for as a sales leader, and 3 things that we look for in all of our candidates, which is why when we do accept a candidate, 9 times out of 10 they get a job. And every single candidate that we've gotten a job has hit quota, and no one's been fired for missing quota. And
Wow.
yeah, and the three things that we look for are as following. So the first thing is coachability. Coachability to me means having transferable skills and confidence in those skills, yet understanding that there are going to be parts about you that are wrong because you're going to do something new. So it's having that confidence of saying, hey, I'm going to rock it because I've rocked it before, but I also know I'm going to have to learn a bunch of new things. So you just tell me to jump, and I'm just going to jump. And that relationship creates an amazing sales relationship to start. So coachability is really big, and the first thing. After coachability is accountability, which means, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to coach you, and I'm going to make you the best salesperson you ever thought you could be, or really you never thought you could be. But what's really important is that at the end of the day, your success is on your shoulders. And if you have the attitude that says, you know what, no matter what happens, I'm responsible for myself. No matter what happens, I'm responsible for my success. Life, this company, my manager, my trainer, they're all just resources to me, but I'm the builder. That's when accountability allows someone to truly accept the reality that is sales. And once they accept that reality, then they can be successful in the environment. So coachability and accountability are two really big things. And then the last thing is just work ethic. Work ethic means once you're at the top of the sales leaderboard and you look to your right, your friend sitting next to you, and you look to your left, your friend sitting next to you, do you still outwork them? Mm-hmm. Are you at the top making the most money, impressing everyone in the company, and do you still make more calls than the people that are sucking? Because when you make the most money and you make the most calls, you literally guarantee yourself a promotion. You literally are showing the world that you are so focused on improving yourself and setting an example for the team that the world will give you anything you want. So getting to the top and still climbing as if you were, at the bottom, that's how you stay at the top. And that's the hard thing about sales. Everyone can make a sale. How do you make consistent sales? That's really, really the trick. So coachability, accountability, and work ethic are the three attributes that will turn a human being into a very wealthy person if they join sales.
And so I think the last one that was really interesting was the aspect of mentality and mindset, where you kind of have to think of yourself as still at the bottom, even though you're at the top. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, if we go back to we are a product and we're always trying to get better, products never say we're done, right? Companies never say they're done. I mean, you look at Coca-Cola that's been around for 100 years. Coca-Cola still advertises, and they're advertising because they're still trying to figure out better ways to sell us Coke. Coca-Cola could not advertise for the next 3 years. You and I would still probably buy Coke. Their brand is that strong. But they do it because they're trying to get better and they're trying to learn more. And you know what? Sometimes they roll out, vanilla Coke and everyone hates it. But maybe they roll out raspberry Coke and it increases their sales 20%, and everyone gets to go on a larger vacation. So to get back to the point, if you're always thinking about getting better, and if you're always focused on being the best human being you can be, there really is no peak of the mountain. There really are just stepping stones on this journey of life. And I think if you can get to the point where you pursue perfection, and you understand perfection does not exist, that is the true opportunity in life to maximize why we're here.
That's pretty deep. That's pretty good. Wow. So as somebody who has done sales yourself, how does one get the most out of their sales career? What kind of resources do they read, and why do people fail at sales?
Yeah, so people fail at sales for two reasons. One, they got into it for the wrong reasons. So they just graduated. Yeah. Someone told them they needed to get a job. It could be their significant other. It could be their family. They just said, get a job. And they say, okay, well, I'll get a sales job. And they don't really care if they're successful or not. They just did it to appease another human being. Anytime you do something for another human being and not for your own joy and happiness, it isn't really a healthy decision. Sometimes you make sacrifices for those that you love to show them that you care about them. But generally speaking, you should be doing things that are healthy for you, and you should be doing things that make you happy. So it's really important to keep that in mind for sales. So a lot of people fail because they didn't get into it for themselves. They just got into it for someone else for other reasons. I'd say another reason someone fails in sales is that they're not committed. They're not committed to growth. They're not committed to improvement. They're not committed to their own success. Sales is not a 9-to-5 job. In sales, an average person can do okay in a 9-to-5 job, but top performers, what they do is they say, okay, how many calls did I make today? How many of those calls got to appointments? And how many of those calls got to sales? Now, once I have those percentages, hypothetically speaking, what could I have done to increase my percentage 1%? Because I know if I can increase my percentage just 1%, I will literally make an extra $30,000 this year. And I will literally buy myself a car with that extra one sale a month. They become obsessed with that success. So when they go home, they pop a movie on in the background and they start looking at all their metrics, for example. So if someone's not committed to growth, if someone's not committed to being their own product and getting better, they're just not gonna be successful in a sales environment.
I feel like those two metrics are very much consistent across all careers, right? Even if you're like an accountant or a marketer or an engineer, if you're not committed to growth, then you're probably not going to get far in your career, period. What makes doing this in sales different from those careers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the money.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can work as a product manager or a marketing manager, and correct me if I'm wrong, Albert, and I mean this, of course, like in a nice way, but you're probably not on a commission plan, right? And
I could get a bonus at the end of the year if my salespeople pull their weight.
Yeah, so you could maybe get a bonus dependent on other people, right? So
depending on other people, yeah.
Yeah. So in sales, the biggest difference is the immediate payout. And because that carrot is there, it's really a system that's designed for people that want to chase the carrot. That's why there's a base salary and there's a commission. For example, one of our partner companies, their standard offer letter that they give our graduates is $45,000 in base salary, $30,000 in annual commission, and a $5,000 signing bonus. But there's it's not bad, right? But
hey, just by pulling your weight, class life, life.
Yeah, and so there's a reason that the amount of guaranteed compensation and the amount of opportunity for compensation are very similar numbers, because they really want to have someone that can go out there and grind it. And not to mention, not only is the money amazing, but the promotion track is really aggressive. So someone in marketing or product or anything like that, which are great business units. I have a lot of friends in those business units, so definitely not talking down to them, but they're just different pros and cons. In sales, someone can get promoted 3 months, 6 months. I mean, if you just go into LinkedIn and you just look up, sales development representative or account executive, and you literally spend 15 minutes just looking up different profiles, I promise you'll find people that have gotten promoted after only 6 months. And to think about that, I mean, you get your first job out of college or your first tech job and you get $45,000. And then 6 months later, you're up to $60,000. And then 9 months later, you're up to $90,000. I mean, this is real life in the environment that we're in. So I'd say that's probably one of the reasons it's such a different factor.
And I think it's honestly that way because you're really close to your company's survival. At the end of the day, and when I was at my last company, we sat really close to the sales folks. And I mean, we joked to them, and I thanked them for paying my salary or going and getting my salary. But the truth at the end of the day is they're literally doing that. The rest of us who aren't salespeople are going home with paychecks every 2 weeks because some sales guy out there is hustling hard to make the paycheck.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's what's created this huge vacuum for sales talent in tech. So the way it basically started is that a CEO had an idea, and that idea got money from venture capital, and the promise was that money would turn the idea into a product. So now you have all these tech companies that have products all over the place. Well, what's the next step? You have to sell the product. Right? It's the final step in having a business. A product and a business are not the same thing.
No.
So when someone wants to transition from having a software product to having a software business, they have to engage with sales in order to start generating revenue, to generate a return for their investors that gave them the money for the idea 2 or 3 years ago. So that's really why this dynamic is so interesting, especially in tech, where almost everyone borrows money to turn an idea into an engineer building a product. And then once the product's built and tested, it's time to sell it.
Very true, very true. So we have a question.
Sure.
We have, how do you pick between a career in sales management and just growing into a super high-performing account executive? How did you choose?
Yeah, it's based on priorities. So
and we will talk about the money in a really quick minute here, because I think maybe people will want to hear about that too.
Yeah, well, you know,
want to show up in your driveway later?
You know me, Albert. I'm happy to talk about money anytime.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, there's 2 basic tracks in sales. So one is called an individual contributor, an IC. The other one is leadership. So in sales, you usually start as an SDR, you generate appointments. That's the bottom of the totem pole. And you also start in a smaller business unit selling smaller price points. Maybe your product costs $5,000. Maybe it costs $300 a month. And as you get better in sales, you can either get promoted to sell bigger items, or you can get promoted to manage people. So in the very beginning, you manage one person and you manage a very small product. Then they say, do you want to manage the same product and multiple people, or do you still want to manage yourself and move into a bigger sale? So if you want to make a ton of money and you don't want a lot of responsibility, you go into an enterprise account executive role, where there are literal stories where people, rose through the ranks, got to Salesforce. They sold Salesforce to Progressive Insurance. It was like a $20 million deal. Their commission was like $4 million, and then they just retire, right? Like literally, that's a very common tech story after someone who's been in tech for 5 years or 6 years. Personally, I remember the first time I was a sales manager. I was at a nonprofit. I was fairly young. I was a teenager, and I helped someone wanted, my top performer wanted to quit my sales team and go get a job in the business sector. They wanted to work for private money, so paid a lot better. So I helped them train for an interview, and they ended up getting the job. And they thanked me. I still remember the text. They said, "Gabe, you changed my life. My family and I have never made this much money. This is going to make a really big difference for our life."
Wow.
And I remember that was literally the most rewarding feeling I've ever felt. And growing up, you don't think of business people as being trustworthy people. You don't think of business people as doing what's right for society. And that was really the first time that I realized I could be a good person, and I could also make a lot of money. And that's why personally I decided I wanted to go into leadership. So that's how you decide if you want to go down an enterprise account executive role with your promotions, or if you want to go into a management leadership role.
Wow. Lee Lin has a question. What's the best sales training that you've been through?
The best sales training that I've been through. So I actually once worked.
Right.
What'd you say?
AlwaysHired, right?
Yeah, exactly. I cloned myself, and we just talked for 7 days straight. It was crazy. But I'd say the best training I've ever had was with someone that was really hands-on, and they believed in question-based selling. So one of the things that we train on very, very heavily at AlwaysHired is question-based selling. There's a book out there for everyone watching. Thomas Freese, question-based selling. I think it's like $13 on Amazon. But question-based selling says in sales, we already know what we want in an answer, right? The answer is, yes, I want to buy your product. So since you know the answer, you're halfway to figuring out the equation. The only thing you don't know is what question do you need to ask to get the answer.
You got to work backwards.
Exactly. So if you can just start asking different sets of questions, you'll start getting different answers, and you'll start learning that every question triggers an answer. And that's how you work your way towards a sale.
That was something that's probably maybe one of three things that I remember from selling kitchen cutlery, was at the end of every single part of my conversation with the salesperson, we had to end it with a question. You know, if it was cutting the penny, which is what you do in Cutco, when you're finished cutting the penny, you ask the person, so, hey, where do you use scissors in your everyday life in the house? Right. And based on that answer, that's how you advance the conversation next. Or they're like, you know, I don't really use scissors. And it's like, great, then let's go into our kitchen knives, which, you know, have plenty of. Tell me what you cook on a day-to-day basis, right? And then you get the other person to talk more. It's like going on a date, right? The more you have the other person talk, the more mysterious you become and the more interesting you are. And maybe they open their checkbook up for you at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to close the loop for Leland here, the best training I had was where the manager would record all of our calls. And this was back in the day when they would manually be recorded on a tape deck. And twice a week, they would call a meeting, and one person would have to bring their sales pitch. And they would go through the sales pitch from beginning to end, and they would stop it every time someone made a mistake and just say, hey, Gabe, why did you ask this question? Or, hey, Gabe, do you hear how awkward you sounded? Or, hey, Gabe, can you tell you lost them because you weren't confident? So my message there would be read a book like Question-Based Selling, but really figure out ways to be a mirror to yourself. We're really blind to our own weaknesses. Our brain is actually, nature forces our brain to leverage our strengths as a tactic to optimize for our survival. So you have to be able to override that in business to really identify where weaknesses are and aggressively tackle them. So I would get on a video call and I would pretend I'm doing interviews. And then I would literally watch my video interview, and I hated it because I looked horrible, I sounded horrible, I was awkward, but I didn't realize it in the moment. You never realize in the moment the mistakes you make. That's why professional athletes watch game footage. So game footage is one of the most powerful things you can do early in your career to truly analyze yourself the way the consumer is analyzing you during that interaction.
I mean, marketers, we do the same thing too. When we're finished running a campaign, we host a postmortem. We talk about what rocked. We talk about what sucked. About what we do next. And you know, it's very much similar. So there are no other questions for the time being. I'd like to go into probably your favorite part of this. Talk about the money. So I feel like, you know, a lot of other careers, you don't necessarily think about money. But when it comes to sales, you know, you're thinking about Wolf of Wall Street. You're thinking about the movie Boiler Room. You're thinking about all those things, and just like, you know, and you hear stories, right? I had somebody tell me yesterday that he was going to go work for Grant Cardone out in Florida, where people regularly pull $20,000 a month.
Right.
So, you know, on my side of the fence here, I feel like, wow, that's some pretty crazy numbers. But what's the reality of that? Because, you know, the myth is, you know, because you know, like, I guess network marketing is an aspect of sales where you hear that, you know, 99% of people never make a single thing, and the guy who's pulling 300K a month is like an absolute unicorn. But what the heck, you know, talk about the money a little bit, and then we'll actually have another question. Nate Grau.
Sure. Hey, Nate. Nate just graduated and got a job. He's a really awesome, outgoing guy.
Oh, yeah. Got a good question here, too, that we'll get into.
Cool. So,
Look forward to now in the next couple of months. Inviting us to a yacht in the marina.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd say, so first, if someone makes $250,000 in a year, they're top 1% of the they're a one percenter. If they make over $100,000 a year, they're 10%, and I believe at around $70,000 a year, they're 30%. And the reality is, in the first year in sales, someone can expect 60,000 on the low end and 80,000 on the high end, which is pretty good. I mean, it's like $6,000 a month, which is a fair amount of cash, if you ask me. Second year compensation is going to be over 100,000, probably just over 100,000, like 105, maybe 107, 110 at the most. And then if you continue in tech sales, once you have a successful career, you'll be making 150K plus. But because by that time you're an account executive, so you'll probably command a base salary of 60 or 75,000 at a minimum. And once you're at a $75,000 salary, you're going to get at least that much opportunity in commission. So I'd say.
And is there a difference between whether you're like an inside salesperson or an outside salesperson on those kind of numbers, and maybe even those career designations?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people ask that all the time. They're like, what career, what industry pays out the most money? And the truth is, there isn't a cookie cutter answer. There are high paying jobs in tech. There are low paying jobs in tech. There are good jobs in finance. There are bad jobs in finance. What really is important to understand is the health of the business, because the healthier the business is, the more they can afford to pay someone to work there. The way you identify the health of a business is by doing a couple things here in an exercise. The first thing is you find out their price point, and you find out how much they charge. Usually the higher a company charges for their product, the more money they're going to be sitting on. If a company sells, a $3,000 package, it's very different than a company selling a $50,000 package. So generally speaking, the more expensive the product, the more money there is. What's also important to keep in mind is, what is the profit margin of the product? Are there any services that are involved in upkeep of the customer's happiness? So if you have to sell a product that requires a lot of customer service and a lot of customer support and a lot of people on the phone to handle the client after the sale, that's really expensive. And that money comes out of the profit, which means that money comes out of your commission. If you work for a really great software company where they don't need a ton of customer success people, I mean, I don't know if anyone realizes this, but has anyone ever tried to contact LinkedIn? They don't really have customer support. They have
networks do, really.
Yeah, they don't really, right? And you can imagine the amount of money account executives make at LinkedIn, because once they make a sale, the money just goes into the bank. It doesn't go to another human being to make sure the money keeps coming back. So if you can find companies where you feel there's not a lot of overhead to maintain the revenue that's already coming in, that's how you can identify a company with really great profit margins that will be able to pay you a lot.
So you're saying that if a company could avoid hiring customer success managers, that's probably the best situation possible. And the less customer success managers at a company, the more likelihood maybe you as a salesperson should go work there, because the product is intuitive, or they hired a really good contract technical writer to just take care of everything and document everything. Yeah, exactly.
I'd say it's probably rare that a company has no customer success, but you're absolutely right. What you can do is you can look at the ratio of salespeople to customer success. If you have 5 to 10 salespeople for every one customer success, that's great. If you have something like 3 salespeople for every one customer success, that's pretty expensive, right? If you have 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, that means every time you hire a salesperson, you have to hire a customer success person. How can they afford to pay you a lot? They can't. They have to pay out every time they hire someone like you.
And that's especially tough, because there's so many tech startups in downtown San Francisco and all those buildings that, you're probably losing money on every customer success call that you really need to make, because that's a customer that's not happy or struggling to learn your product or not happy with the features available to them, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just going away from money for a quick moment, I think we may have answered this question, but Nate asked, I just got a sales development rep job thanks to AlwaysHired. What are some new habits and behaviors I should be taking up to enable good habits and success in my new role?
Similar to what we talk about, the reason I really like sales is because, to me, sales is the same thing as life. And it's about getting better and making an improvement, and never being satisfied with the status quo. So what I would say to Nate is, whatever it took you to get to where you are, that hustle that you have, don't let it die. You probably sent out 100 applications a week. Well, now it's time to make 100 calls a day. You're going to make your first 10 sales, and you're going to want to take a break, and you're going to want to, take Monday off. Force yourself to fight through the pain, because when you become a manager or when you get promoted in 6 months, you're going to know why. And your peers that took Monday off, they're going to complain, and they're going to say, why does Nate get promoted and I don't? And you'll know deep down inside it's because you kept giving it your all 100% of the time. So I would just say the hustle that was in you when you didn't have the job, the fire that was in you that allowed you to climb that mountain, make sure you remember the pain. Make sure you remember why you did it, because the reason why you did it is the reason you should be doing it your entire life.
Wow. Okay. And so going back into more money aspects, are there any other financial aspects you'd like to speak about when it comes to sales? I know one thing that I've always wondered about is the area of, I think, recurring paychecks and recurring revenue, right? So, for example, I know in software sales, because so many of the software companies have cloud programs with annual recurring revenue type models. If you sell a piece of software in January for $50,000 and the company re-ups next January, do you also get the money from that re-up too?
It really depends on the company and the organization. If the company wants to incentivize you to continue to maintain the relationship, then they'll give you what's called a renewal bonus, which means when your book of business renews, you get a small commission. Typically, companies are moving away from this as they only want their salespeople focused on generating new revenue. But some of the cool things that might be worth sharing with the community here watching are things outside of the commission. So what's really great about sales are all the perks. So for example, I've traveled to New York, Chicago, Austin, Los Angeles, and it was all on company dime, company money. And they put you in a hotel and they pay for your food. And it's a really amazing experience. And that was something I would have never gotten if I went to another business unit. In fact, it's very common that every month there's some type of contest for the sales team. And every quarter there's a bigger contest. So an example of what a will look like, or a spiff, will say something like, hey, whoever makes the most calls this week, $100. Whoever makes the most sales this month, $1,000. Whoever makes the most sales for the quarter, you get a trip for 2 to Hawaii. And that's very, 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 very common. And before you know it, not only are you making $80,000, but you're taking your significant other on an old expensive paid trip just because you decided not to take Monday off. And that's a really exciting thing to be able to say. It's just a great feeling to have another person or this company give you a trip or buy you. I remember I was working at a company and they gave away like a scooter, like a moped, like a $3,500 car to the top producer. And literally someone got a car. They got a $3,500 scooter for being a top performing sales rep. So you can just imagine how exciting it is to be in that environment where everyone's just going crazy and crazy and crazy. And not to mention you're doing it with all your friends, right? So what's more fun than winning with your friends?
Coffee is for closers.
Coffee, Hawaii, and cars.
I one of my recruiter friends, because staffing and recruiting is pretty much sales too.
Yeah.
Gets to go to, I think, every year on her staffing agency because she's one of the top salespeople, and she gets to work out of her own house making gobs and gobs of money. And because she's so good at it now, they're letting her relocate to anywhere she wants in the United States, and she gets to make even higher as far as the margin is concerned. So I mean, it's awesome. It all works. Yeah. And I know, so what's the most swankiest thing you've ever won based on your sales performance?
Well, I actually got promoted to management. I chose management fairly quickly, so I never got the super baller stuff because I was always the manager making sure my team got it. But I I can talk about
You gave out.
yeah, some of the coolest stuff that we ever gave out. Absolutely. So one of the things that I was on a team that we did was the Hawaii trip. So we gave her name was Julie Parker. Those that know Julie Parker, she's a very extroverted person, and she won a trip for two, and she started like singing and dancing, and it was
Wow.
pretty crazy. Another thing that we've given out is just a $2,000 cash bonus at the end of the week. So everyone's doing a sprint. Whoever has the sales by Friday at 5 o'clock. Friday at 5 o'clock comes, I refresh the database. I see that Nate, for example, was the top producer, and you just walk over him and you just drop $2,100 bills on him. And that's a pretty cool experience to be able to.
Hot bonuses.
Yeah. So those were a lot of fun between the trips and the cash. That's a lot of fun.
So we've hit the hour mark of our interview here. I mean, we've had a lot of fun over the past hour just talking sales. I want to give you the next however long you need, maybe 5-10 minutes, to talk about our AlwaysHired a little bit and why the folks watching this, now and possibly later on down the line should consider, a career in sales, and if they, aren't sure how to get into sales, why they should consider your program.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, why you should consider a career in sales is really up to the viewer watching this, and I can help you decide maybe if sales is right for you, because it really depends on what will make the person happy, right? That's what drives us as human beings, what makes us happy. And if you've determined that making a lot of money will make you happy right now, or you need to make a lot of money because you have bills or a family or loans, then sales is something very serious to consider. So that's one thing. One thing is just financial incentive is a reason to consider sales. I'd say another reason to consider sales is if you want to break into the technology sector. There's two real ways to break into tech right now. I haven't really seen any entry-level marketing roles or entry-level operations or entry-level product management. It doesn't really exist. So
Not really, yeah.
Yeah, so the typical way into tech is through engineering. So if you want to learn to code, and that's something fun, engineering is great. But if you don't want to learn to code and you still want to get into the technology sector, then sales is a great avenue for you. What's great about sales as well is because it's so aggressive and there's so much accountability, companies love top performers. It's a very high visibility role. Literally, the top performers on a TV screen with a stack rank that says, Albert number 1, 100,000, Gabe number 2, 98,000, Nate number 3, 70,000. And because
real inside sales organizations where you have those TV screens that show how the person's bringing in, that makes it really competitive.
Yeah, and because of that, it's really easy to move into other organizations, right? Imagine if you hit quota for 6 months in a row, and every time marketing gives you a lead, you close it. Let's say marketing has a role opening up 6 months later, and you go and ask the marketing director for coffee. You have this amazing warm opportunity that you would have never, ever had in your career to get that marketing job. And
I mean, getting all that commission and making all that money and getting all those rewards, why would you go from, a base salary plus on-target earnings to just a base salary, right? I mean,
yeah, well, it's really just up to the person, right? Some people get into sales because they want to make a lot of money. Some people get into sales because it's a means to an end.
That's true.
And either one's okay, right? I mean, I think it would be rare if we asked every single one of our students, do you want to be a salesperson forever? Most of them would say no. Most people don't say, I want to be a salesperson when I retire. What they say is, I want to be a salesperson right now because I want to make a lot of money and I want to get my foot in the door. And I know that in 3 years, I can be a kick-ass marketer, or I can do operations and be a data analyst. And I know if I can just prove to a company that I can hit quota, then I can do anything. There's no way you're going to tell me I can't do my job when I just hit quota and saw 3 other people, not perform well. So that's a great opportunity that's available in sales that's fairly unique.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about Always Hired and kind of what the program model is without, of course, giving away your secret sauce and things like that.
Sure.
Because you run that organization, and we've got some of your former students on here as well, and maybe even some prospective folks who may want to join your organization and see how it can benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Always Hired is a 40-hour sales training program. We do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you're done. And then after that, we provide interview prep, we provide resume prep, LinkedIn prep, and some really cool things. So let me just give a brief overview in case anyone's curious. So in the very beginning, we do introduction to tech, which is the people, the product, and the money behind the industry. So for example, the products in tech are hardware. This is hardware that they sell. The apps that I use in here is the software, and then Always Hired is services. So that's an example of something we would teach you, is that tech is comprised of 3 core products: hardware, software, and services. And then within that, there are different ways of charging, whether it's MRC, monthly reoccurring charge, subscription, or a one-time. So first we drop some knowledge on intro to tech. Then we teach people a little bit about sales. What's a cold call? What's a decision maker? What's a gatekeeper? What's an objection? Once they know the basics of tech and sales, then we go into sales tech. That's when we teach you Salesforce. We'll teach you Yesware, which is one of those email tools where I can see Albert when you open my email. We'll teach you all those tools. And then on the final day of training, we actually partner with tech companies who give us access to their database. And then our students call those leads, they call those companies, and they try to generate interest on behalf of one of our partners. And then they have to log all of their activity in Salesforce, so that by the time they get to an interview, when the interview asks, what experience do you have with Salesforce, and have you ever set an appointment on behalf of a tech company, the person can say, yeah, I just did that 2 days ago. I crushed it. What else do you have for me? So, so that's how we break down the training course. And then we provide a lot of interview prep after. So a sales manager manages their sales team to say, make 100 calls, do 3 appointments, make 1 sale. We have a team of managers that manages our graduates and our students to the same expectations.
Wow.
Do 30 applications, 3 interviews, and we expect 1 offer. And then within every single step and before every single interview, people either meet with me or they meet with the other trainers, and we sit down in a room and we do a mock interview. And I pretend I'm interviewing you on behalf of Oracle, and I'm going to be the toughest interview you've ever had. But that's because when you go out there and you go to the real interview, everything becomes a cakewalk because you've already been so trained for it, and you have the confidence knowing you just did cold calling on behalf of a tech company through our boot camp. So that's a little bit more about the boot camp. That's a little bit more about the training, a little bit more about how we ensure that people get jobs. And if anyone has questions, they're always welcome to just directly contact me. I'm pretty easy to talk to, I like to think. So I'll tell you if I think you're good enough for it. If you're not, I'll answer any questions you have. And, always happy to have a conversation.
So we actually didn't get a chance to talk about the sales interview, but before I jump on that, so it just sounds like that, if I could walk into an Always Hired classroom on Monday, and by Thursday and by the end of the week, I'm pretty much ready to go on to my sales career.
Yeah, so we would put you through a full screening. Yeah, we would put you through a full screening process. So I interview people just like I used to when I was a sales leader. But yeah, once someone starts on Monday, they get a job extremely quickly. And what's happening right now is that our reputation is so strong, since no one's getting fired, everyone's making money and being really successful, is that students are starting to get jobs before class is over, because as soon as they update their LinkedIn and put that they're with Always Hired, the market knows that there's something special about them, and they already start reaching out to them and trying to steal them from our class early, which is a good problem to have, I guess.
So you come in Monday, you update your LinkedIn Tuesday, and Wednesday somebody wants to take you in and bring you in for a chat.
Yeah, it's literally really aggressive, but I guess it's a good problem to have.
That's a great game changer. We got to have you talking more in Albert's list then, because we got so many new grads that could use so much of your insight to, I think, bring them to market and, get them in, because, there's a lot of barriers for a lot of entry level folks. And so, we want to be able to add them, give them some more value in that end.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the Albert's List community. You guys are so strong. I mean, I'm really actually impressed in regards to how genuine this community is and how much everyone cares about helping each other. I remember when I first joined, I would see someone write a question, just like a general question for job advice, and like 15 people would answer with like well thought out, well written answers.
Yeah.
Just because they care about helping another human being. And when you can build a team of people that care about each other and everyone's trying to get to the same goal, it almost reminds me of a sales environment, to be honest. But it really is something special to see.
Yeah, it's a loud floor and everything. So
yeah,
cool. Well, if there aren't any more questions, we're going to leave it at here. And thank you again, Gabriel, for coming online. For any of those who may want to continue the conversation, go visit alwayshired.com. I believe that is your website, correct?
Correct.
Get in touch with Gabe through also our Facebook group, which you can access via albertslist.org or bit.ly/findyournextjob. We don't have any other webinars coming up, but we will inform those people of those that are coming up. And so, yeah, if you have any questions, come join our group. And this is Albert again, thanking all of you for coming on board and learning more about sales and why the myths of yesteryear are no longer real. So have a great weekend, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.